The problems here in Georgia gaining the attention of the presumed Democratic presidential nominee, former Vice President Joe Biden. His team shared a statement reading in part, "What we see today in Georgia, from significant issues with voting machines to breakdowns in the delivery of ballots to voters who requested to vote absentee, are a threat to those values and are completely unacceptable. We only have a few months left until voters around the nation head to the polls again, and efforts should begin immediately to ensure that every Georgian and every American is able to safely exercise their right to vote." Meanwhile, U.S. Senate candidate John Ossoff urged Georgia voters to stay in lines, also making references to voter suppression. One of his opponents, Sarah Riggs-Amico, called for extended voting hours tonight, tweeting her thanks to everyone who has voted. And candidate Teresa Tomlinson had this to say.
Too many people were turned away. Too many people really had to withstand hardship, standing in the rain and the blistering sun for hours. It's ridiculous.